Well, I am back again to welcome all of you to our webinar. I am Janice Weiss with Lewis and Clark Law School in Portland, Oregon. With me also today is Tess Jacobson, who is the Assistant Director of our Environmental Law Program. Together, Tess and I oversee both our in-person and online Master of Studies in Law, as well as our post-JD program, also offered in person and online, our LLM program. Today, our focus, of course, is going to be on the MSL program in Environmental and Natural Resources Law. She will get a fuller introduction later, but we have one of our MSL about to be graduates, Anne Thrall Nash, who is joining us as well. So those are the three faces you can see on your screen. So we are delighted to be here today to talk about our master's program. And for those of you listening to the recording later, feel free to post any questions you might have, either in the Q&A or the chat, or feel free to email Tess or me following the webinar. We'll be sure that you have our contact info. So with that, we'll do the next slide, Tess. So thought we better start with giving the framework of what is a Master of Studies in Law. This is a degree that is designed for students who really would feel that learning about environmental, energy, and natural resources law and policy would be very helpful to their professional development, their career goals, but who do not want to practice law or be a lawyer or go through the full program of law school. We'll talk a little bit later in the webinar about the kinds of things that our students do with this master's degree. But it's good to just outline right up front that this is really designed for folks who want to learn about law and policy, but who don't necessarily want to be a lawyer. And we think that's great because there is room for advocacy of all different types, of course, in the environmental law and policy field. It's worth mentioning that our program is designed so that students are taking actual law school classes taught by our law professors. In most cases, the exact same law professors who teach the same classes here on campus. So in the classes, you are mixed in with other law students, and some of our post-JD students are LLMs. So that's just a quick snapshot of what the MSL is geared towards. And Tess, I think you're on the next slide here.
Thanks, Janice. Yeah, so I'm happy to talk a little bit about kind of some of the hiring trends that we're seeing in environmental law and policies and how, what you can do with your MSL degree. So one of the, things to note is that, environmental law is a pretty steady field and discipline. It doesn't usually have a lot of crazy spikes or drops, which means there's usually a consistent amount of jobs available. Currently, we're seeing a lot in the climate change field. And there's opportunities to be creative throughout this job as well. So with an MSL degree, a lot of our students, might focus on things like SEC regulations and corporate disclosures. Through the degree, you learn how to read statutes, how to read the laws, and then you're able to take that knowledge and apply it to the jobs that you are looking for. We also see private sector, and as well, there's been a lot of increase in that. And that's through business regulations and compliance. So through the environmental law program that in the MSL program, you're able to do that, and you're able to work on business regulations and compliance with companies, helping them to know, what environmental laws might be important. While you're not going to give legal advice, you can advise these companies, which is really important. And you can also do it we see a lot in governments as well, both on the city, local, state level. There's also increasing opportunities for environmental justice that is creating, you can see it on the slide there, that is creating a lot of space for the professionals as well. And that there is environmental regulation opportunities to redesign that. That's where that creativity kind of comes into play. Our MSL students can really be at the forefront of helping to advise and advance environmental regulations, which can be really great. And that's you have this passion for environmental law. We teach you the skills on how to do that. And MSL students are able to do that. You have that knowledge. You don't have to go through an entire JD program. There's other opportunities as well in nonprofit advocacy groups, NGOs, legislators. We're going to go over a little bit in a later slide on like what kind of jobs our MSLs have gotten in the past, specific jobs, specific MSLs, so that you can know that we're, what kind of jobs are available, what kind of jobs our graduates are getting. They also work in educational institutions, journalism. We've had teachers, professors use this degree in order to help enhance their classroom for their students as well. You might see sustainability is also becoming a really big one. So sustainability within business and corporations, manufacturing, businesses are really highlighting sustainability nowadays. And so that's important for our MSL graduates because you're going to be able to guide those businesses, guide those corporations on sustainable practices, both relevant to the law and beyond. And then one other thing I wanted to highlight is that if you're interested in a specific area, a specific issue, that can be based on geographic areas. So that keeps things pretty wide. We have coastal water rights, things like that can really be based on specific geographic areas where our graduates and our students might be located. So we really try to make sure to highlight that in the program as well. And that's kind of something we see in hiring trends as well. If you're interested in those areas, we have those resources available and you're able to get jobs, helping people know about their what's coastal law? What does that mean? What are your rights regarding that? What are certain water rights? Things like that as well. And I think that was what I wanted to kind of highlight on this slide. And then Janice, did you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I can do the next one. Thanks, Tess. So return on investment is obviously an important question, particularly if you're deciding do you want a graduate degree? What value might it bring to your professional development? You may be choosing among different types of graduate programs. And so we completely understand the importance of knowing, what a particular degree is going to bring you. I should note at this point that Tess and I spend quite a bit of time with individual potential students talking about your particular interests and career path. I want to emphasize that because MSL students come to us from all walks of life at all different stages of careers. Some students are right out of college, some have had careers, some are looking for a mid-career pivot. So we'll give you some general information here, of course, but we are happy to speak with you individually about how this program may suit you, or happy to compare other programs that you may be looking at. So many of our graduates are either have some environmental background, perhaps that was their undergraduate major, or perhaps they've dabbled a bit in it in their professional career. But they really want to make an intentional pivot to really focus on environmental law and policy, because it may be that you've realized this is your passion. There's obviously a lot that needs to be done in the environmental field. And so we focus on helping students make that pivot. Tess mentioned a few of the areas that students go into. And within this program, you can certainly take a variety of classes. We offer all sorts of classes. You can also focus a bit more on a particular area, such as sustainability or energy law, by doing some core competency work in specialty areas. Because this program is online, it allows you to have flexibility to choose your classes, to take the number of classes you might want to take in any given semester, depending on your schedule. And as we'll talk about in a little bit, The courses are set up to be asynchronous in the sense that you, within certain time periods, will be watching course videos and doing the work in a time frame that meets your schedule. So if you've got a job, if you're doing other things, you've got family obligations, certainly allows you to do that. The program is also, the tuition for the program is on a per credit basis. So we note on the slide, limiting the amount of student loan can occur in two different ways. One is if you want to keep working, obviously it's a very nice if you're able to keep an income while you are um, taking a program like this. And many of our students certainly find they can continue their jobs and do this program. In addition, since the tuition is on the pay by credit system, you have control over what your tuition dollars will be in any given semester. So we have good feedback on allowing that flexibility to sort of wax and wane with the number of credits you might take in any given semester. Other advantages, obviously, we plan that you will develop expertise and competence in environmental law, natural resources, energy law, and policy. We are finding also, because we have such a strong reputation nationally for our environmental law program, that graduating with this master's degree from Lewis and Clark really signals to potential employers you're committed to this area. A graduate degree always signals an interest in an area, and this, of course, is no exception. We also really try to work with each student on their career path. Um, for example, if there's an internship that we think might benefit your professional development, we work with our students on that. So that during the program and as you're studying, we're working with you to maximize professional opportunities. We should also mention we have a pretty vast network of alums. We have our JD law degree program in environmental law. That's been going on since 1970. So lots and lots of alums out there for the JD program. Lots of alums now in the MSL program and in the LLM program, all of whom are available to talk with students as you're starting to think about your professional goals. So that's another nice return on your investment, is to be able to take advantage of our pretty vast network. So Tess, I'll turn it back over to you to really bring home some specifics on this.
Thanks, Janice. So yeah, earlier I mentioned that we'd be talking about some of our alums and the specific jobs that they have gotten. So this is kind of a list of jobs that our alums have gotten in the program. A lot of these profiles are available on our website too. So I'll drop the link to that if you want to dig a little bit deeper into any of these specific jobs or opportunities that our alums have had. So, you know, we've had people who have gotten a chance to work for power administrations through the energy specialist programs. They've worked for nonprofits as program coordinators or directors, even field associates. And then we've also had them go into government. So we've had some who have worked for legislative aides in state governments, who have worked for legislative directors in the government. And then we also have, like I mentioned, we have some who go into journalism or professors at colleges as well, or high schools even too. And again, that's to bring that expertise kind of into the classroom. And Janice mentioned a little bit about our alumni network and kind of the connections that we have there. And that's where our career services can kind of help you find that dream job. So we have so Janice and myself are both always available to our students to help them. We have a wide network, as Janice mentioned, of alums through the JD, the LLM, the MSL program now. And our career services office is also available to all of our students. So they can be a really phenomenal resource to help you find jobs. We have a large online database specific to our students where we post jobs that are available for both as a student, so possible externships, and also jobs post-graduation as well. As an alum, you have access to all of these resources, not only as a student, but once you graduate as well. So it's not something that goes away once you graduate. If you want to pivot your career after graduation into a different area of environmental law, we're here for you. We can help with that as well. And our career services does a really good job too of helping prepare you for this career transition, or if it is a career transition, or if it's entering the field as from an undergrad. They do mock interviews with our students. They make sure to highlight resumes and cover letters to be able to highlight your career and explain this degree. Some employers don't necessarily know what an MSL is, or that you are taking actual law school classes, but you're not a law school student. So we really help you highlight the benefits of this degree and how it might be different from a JD, but how it's just as beneficial sometimes and can still compete with a lot of JD Advantage positions. There's also the individual career counseling. So, if there's a specific area of law, specific organization you want to work for. We've been teaching environmental law since the 1970s here at Lewis and Clark. So again, tapping into that alumni network. We have alums all over the world in almost every environmental organization. So we're able to help you make those connections, help you build that network, and then hopefully, help you find those jobs post-graduation. There's also going to be opportunities to I mentioned mock interviews, where you're doing interviews with, graduates or with career services, and local alums in the area, and they can give you feedback to really highlight this degree and how it might be beneficial to you. And perhaps Anne can talk a little bit more about kind of her process and what she's done through the finding jobs and resources that she's used as well. So with that, I'm going to introduce Anne, and Anne is will be soon a graduate of our MSL program. We'll probably talk about it a little bit more, so I'm just going to do a very brief introduction. She is from the Pacific Northwest, and she got her BS from Oregon State University in Environmental Economics and Sustainability. So she's really unique in that she's done both our online and our in-person programs. So, there's flexibility between the programs as well. So if you're not quite sure which program you're interested in, or if you want to take advantage of different opportunities, we offer that flexibility, and Anne can definitely highlight that as well. And really, congratulations to her, is that after graduation, she will be working at Portland General Electric. So we're super proud of her for securing that job. She's had a lot of externships and practical experience during her time in the program. So I'm excited to hear more about those as well. Anne, would you like to kind of introduce yourself a little bit more? And then we're happy to take any questions too, if people want to start dropping them in the Q&A.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I'm going to apologize ahead of time if you hear some roaring. We have a air show coming into town right over our heads, unfortunately, and I didn't realize that was going to be happening right now. So I've shut the window. Hopefully there will not be giant airplane noises happening. But yes, this kind of stuff always happens. So again, my name is Anne Thrall-Nash. I am indeed about to graduate in 2 days. Yay. Tess and Janice asked me to talk a little bit about why I decided to join the program and my experiences in it. As you can see, I did graduate from Oregon State with degrees in environmental economics and sustainability, and I knew I wanted to get a master's degree doing something. I looked into some energy economics. I was interested in the clean energy transition and in sort of applying skills to help that process along. And talked to some people and realized that it was a very regulatory heavy, law heavy field, and that if I didn't understand those things, that I probably wasn't going to be able to effectively work within the field. And so thankfully, Lewis and Clark has a great energy law program. And I was also interested in other aspects of environmental law. And I do live in the Portland area, but I do have family obligations that I needed to be mindful of. And so I decided that I would, since they had online and in-person classes available, that no matter what was going on in my life, I would be able to find what I needed from the program. And so I started in the fall of 2022. So I did the program over 2 years, which I don't really get a sense if that's typical or not. I've met a couple of students that have done it in one, which sounds like an enormous amount of reading to me, but they have done it. And then I know some people who just take like one class at a time, and it takes them a while. So there's quite a range. in there. So I did it over 2 years, and I did started completely online, and then my last year I sort of split between online and in person, and I was able to take advantage of the practicum opportunities that they have. Again, Tess talked about some externships I did, so I was able through the school to do an externship with Oceana, which is an ocean advocacy nonprofit. I also did paid work that I was able to secure, I think, partially because I was in this particular program. So I've worked both for Renewable Northwest, which is an energy advocacy group here in a nonprofit in Portland, and then I also have been a clerk for Green Energy Institute at Lewis and Clark School this last semester that I've been there. So I've had quite a bit of opportunity to gain some practical skills. And I will say that in my interviews for positions and in my interview in general for both during the program and for post-graduation work, I will say that that is true that Lewis and Clark Law School has quite a good reputation just amongst the sort of environmental energy community. I've had people go, "Oh yeah, like that." When I explain my degree, "Oh yeah, I've heard they were a really great school," and or there sometimes I'm talking to people who have either gone to Lewis and Clark or know of people who have. And all the feedback has been really great. So that's good to know as well. And let me see. So in terms of the online program, so I finished my degree at Oregon State in their online program. So I was quite familiar with the kind of the general format. I was familiar with sort of the requirements of myself and of an online program. I will say the law school is slightly different just because it's pretty reading intensive. There's a lot of reading, and it can be pretty dense reading depending on what you're looking at, depending on the topic you're looking at. Sometimes some classes are or you're reading a lot of cases. Some you're reading more a lot of policy documents, so it does vary a bit, but there is quite a lot of reading. And so like learning how to fit the reading into my life was probably the only thing that was a big jump for me. I found having an e-reader, I have like a cool big format e-reader to help my eyes and so that I can carry my reading around wherever I go with all of my stuff that I do. And so then I could get reading in like out in the world as well as at home. So I found that to be really helpful. I don't know does anybody have any questions? Oh, I see one. Let's see. Oh, okay. So I'll try to answer this question just based on what I've seen from like the thing, and then if Janice has more insight, that'd be great. So here is what I have observed is that the work that I have done for, say, Green Energy Institute has been very similar to what the staff attorneys are doing, just on a slightly, I don't know, I would say less intense scale, I guess is what I want to say. Like one of the things, like we're drafting documents, we're drafting comments, we're doing legal research, we're doing all that stuff, and then passing it up to the attorneys who actually have to put their names on these things and actually file them, right? As attorneys, they have to actually do the filing. But we're doing a lot of the same work that they're doing. And in terms of job listings that I have seen in the environmental world, like if you're looking at like working for a nonprofit or something like that, there's always going to be at least one attorney on staff because there has to be somebody on staff that actually can do the filing and do the litigation part of this work. But there's also, if there's one staff attorney, there's probably 5 or 6 other people who do very similar kinds of work in terms of research and in terms of drafting documents and in terms of policy analysis and things like that, that are not JD people. And so that's been my observation in the work that I've done. Janice may be able to
I
more
think
clarity to that.
no, I think you're right on, Anne. I think that's a really good answer, and it's a great question. To sort of parse through how does the job responsibility or duties compare, between someone with a JD and a master's degree. And Anne, I think you really hit the nail on the head. It obviously depends. If you're working for an environmental organization or agency, that focuses, for example, on environmental enforcement and litigation, that's going to be for the JDs to handle. However, we have master's students who are in those types of organizations, and the kind of research and support that they can bring to litigation is also really valuable. Um, the question is talking about environmental compliance, and I think as Anne said, in the compliance field, I think there are a lot of similarities in the work that someone with a JD and someone with a master's would do. It's a lot of research and writing, which, of course, you need strong writing and research skills, which both programs would certainly have. And, I think the difference would be if you want to be the person that is filing the documents, is actually going to appear in court, if there were to be an actual court case, then you might lean more towards the JD degree. If you're interested in helping a company or government agency be in compliance with environmental laws, and you're going to review, for example, environmental documents, National Environmental Policy Act documents, that would be absolutely appropriate for master's students to do. So hopefully that answered your question, Marin.
And I'll just add to that too, as somebody who's been like looking at jobs and seeking out jobs, is that if you want to work in corporate compliance, I don't think this answer is gonna what I'm about to say is gonna apply, but if you want to work in not in the nonprofit world, unfortunately, like the staff attorneys that work for nonprofits make only slightly more than the policy analysts make, right? And so that can be also be something to think about. I mean, it's unfortunate that there's not enough funding for public interest organizations to be able to pay attorneys as much as like, or even close to what like big law can do or whatever, or even a corporate entity. So there may be a difference in like an ROI sort of calculation for you if you're thinking like, I want to go work for, say, Earth Justice, I want to go work for the Sierra Club, I want to go work for those kind of places where the difference between the pay of a staff attorney versus a research analyst or a policy analyst or just a whatever they call their non-attorney people who do all the research and all the writing and stuff, there might be not a big gap there, and that might affect your decision as well.
Yeah, I think that's great. And do you want to talk just a little bit about how you found the format of the online classes? How did you fit in, the asynchronous, the videos? You mentioned the reading, which yes, definitely can be a lot in a law school type format. But how did you find the online classes, sort of the self-pacing, the videos, that kind of thing, the discussion
So I
questions?
found the lectures to be really good. I mean, and again, I did do a lot of online classes at Oregon State, and I would say that the quality of those was more variable. And so I think that the quality of the lectures and the information that you're getting from Lewis and Clark is very consistent, which I really appreciated. Um, and so for me, like thinking about like, okay, so like if I'm looking at a week and I'm looking at what all the obligations that I'm having, like, okay, so what are the best times and days for me to fit each of those in? I usually had one weekend day that was for reading because then I could focus and then the other parent in the house could do all the parent things. And then and usually I did lectures on either 1 or 2 evenings, depending on how long they were and how much time I had. And then the discussions usually are due, sort of at the end of the week. And so then I had time to digest all that information and then do the discussion posts as well. And one of the things that I think is also great about the online format and the discussion posts, online students have a love-hate relationship with discussion posts. Sometimes people find them to be sort of I don't know, useless or extraneous, or like, this is just an exercise we're going through to check a box here. I didn't find that to be true with Lewis and Clark. I think that particularly because you're dealing with very sort of meaty, interesting topics that have a lot to them, like the discussion posts, there's a lot to think about and a lot to write about. There are a wide variety of students, and they're not just American students. We have international students that are part of our program, and they share some really interesting perspectives on environmental law and environmental, like, sort of thinking about it and how their countries deal with things and don't deal with things, which I found to be really interesting, especially like one of my favorite classes was the ocean and coastal law class that I took with Professor Wald, who one is really great at feedback to his students, and two, like we had some really interesting perspectives from people who were students who were from island nations, who have all the because we were dealing with a lot of fisheries issues, and so that was really interesting to hear. We have people who in the program who already work for some sort of agency doing some sort of environmental thing, and they're doing the program to enhance their skills, maybe help them get, up the government ladder kind of stuff. And they share really interesting perspectives about the actual work, right? Like we do all this sort of theoretical thinking about it. We read cases and stuff, but it's interesting to hear from people who actually do the work, and what they actually hear about. So I found the discussion parts to be really illuminating. And I think that I think everybody sort of takes care to put thought into their discussion posts, and really think through things and respond, sort of articulately to everybody. So I found it really valuable.
That's great. I think that's really helpful to kind of get a sense. And for those of you, again, with us today or listening later to the recording who haven't had experience with online education, it certainly has progressed from its early days of, maybe not terrific quality recordings to what we do, which is very high quality recordings, well thought out discussion questions, as Anne said, to kind of provoke discussion and also to make sure that you've grasped, some of the material. And from our side of things, as the teachers in the program, what really impressed us out of the gate when we started these online programs was how well prepared our online students were for the exams or the final papers at the end of the semester because they had kept up so well. The discussion prompts and some of the classes have quizzes along the way, really help to check in to make sure you're getting the material along the way. And students have told us they feel much more prepared to kind of wrap things up at the end of the semester. So there's some nice benefits that can kind of come out of that
Well, and
model.
I always do my discussion posts in like one big long document and then copy and paste over. Mostly that's so that if I screw something up on the online thing, I don't lose it all. But it also is a super useful record to go back at finals time and remind yourself, because there is quite a lot of information in one semester. And so to be able to go back and really think about, like, okay, this is what I was thinking about way back in week one, is incredibly helpful. And if you're just sitting when you sit in a classroom, you don't necessarily you're not writing as you're going that much information. At least I'm not a huge note taker in class. And so, like, you not necessarily have that like written record to go back to in a in-person class. So that was a distinction.
I think so too. And you mentioned the videos, but Tess and I have heard from students that you can pause the video and back it up, and you can say,
Sure.
well, hold on, what the heck was he talking about or she talking about? You can back it up, listen to it again. You can listen to it, repeatedly. So that I have heard is sort of a nice benefit too. If you wanted to just pause or just to pause to take a break at your convenience. So I think that's an element as well. Yeah.
Well, and I've also found, again, like at a larger institution, that sometimes you're dealing with TAs or you're dealing with, professors that are dealing with a lot of students, and they're not super accessible to you. I found the professors at Lewis and Clark to be pretty accessible. Um, in terms of being able to email them directly, get answers directly. Everybody either made themselves available for office hours at some point in the semester, depending on the professor, or set up review sessions at the end of the semester and with a couple of times so that if you had questions, you could go ask. Um, my first my first semester or my first class was admin law, which is a very sort of dense thing to sort of dive into at the beginning. And even after the exam, I went back and asked the professor, like, I'd like to, like, because we get graded pass fail, and I was like, I'm really glad I passed, but I'd actually kind of like to know if I actually really truly knew what I was talking about. And Professor Frommer's went through my exam with me and kind of pointed out some things. And like, he lives in Bolivia, so it was even like a weird time for him, but he made himself available to help me kind of get my, like, understand that first exam period and like how I had done on the exam and if there were things I should have done better or different. So I found everybody to be very accessible. Janice and Tess are very accessible. Like, this is it's not a large school. And so I felt like there's very easy access to the people who are actually in charge, and I've always gotten my questions answered really quite quickly. So that's also really helpful when you're an online student and don't, you know, can't like run into people in the hall or whatever. Like, to have people who will get back to you and answer your questions and give you information. And I've always really appreciated that.
Yeah, it's nice to know there's real people at the
Yeah,
other end of your cyberspace,
indeed.
education. So that's great. Anne, that was great info. Thank you. And folks, if you have additional questions for Anne, don't hesitate to post them.
Yes.
Um, any final things you want to say, Anne, before we move on, or Tess, anything to add before we move on?
I'd just like to say, like, and as I, I'm leaving, and I'll see Janice and Tess tomorrow, where they're having a little get together for everybody who is graduated from the program this year. Um, but just in general, I've had a great time. I'm glad to be graduating, but sort of sad too, because I feel like I could have learned, I could have taken like 3 or 4 other classes that I was interested in. So it does go quickly.
That is great. Thank you, Anne. And just, it's an interesting note. We have our graduation commencement ceremony this Saturday. And we have, gosh, Tess, I think 15-ish of our online MSL and LLM students are coming from all over the country and the world to come in person to our graduation ceremony. And we are really excited about that. For some of them, it will be their first time on campus, obviously, for many of them. But I just point that out, that there is a nice camaraderie feeling amongst the online students and around Lewis and Clark that is, I think, showing itself in this nice group of folks who are coming. So if you come through our program, know that you can visit us anytime, but also, come in person to graduation if it works for you. So Tess, am I doing this slide or are you doing this one?
If you would like to do this one, I just
Okay,
wanted to
great.
quickly answer the question that Lee just posted
good.
about transferring credits. So that is one, I'm glad you asked that question, because that is something to note and something that I think you really need to self-reflect on which program might be the best for you. Because unfortunately, none of the credits that you would take from an MSL degree would transfer to any JD degree, just due to ABA regulations and things like that. And because it's graded credit, no credit, those credits wouldn't transfer. With the JD degree, there's usually a lot of gen eds or general like constitutional law and things like that you have to take kind of your first year of law school traditionally, and then you can start in like a more specialized field like environmental law, versus the MSL degree, you're diving right into the environmental law classes. But unfortunately, none of those credits would transfer. Sometimes we can coordinate if you're already in a JD program and possibly transfer some to an MSL program, but it doesn't go in the opposite direction. So thank you for asking that question, Lee.
Great. Well, we'll move now to a couple of sort of framework issues around the MSL to really kind of bring home some of the structural elements of the program. So we've talked about how it's online. It's a great option. We'll talk now about some of the details. So one of the details is that the program is comprised of 26 credit hours. Let me explain what that means, because every school has a different way of measuring credits. Most of our online courses are 3 credits. And so that gives you a sense of what we're talking about in terms of this overall 26 credit component. We also have some classes that are 2 credits, and we have a few that are 1 credit per semester. So it's nice because you can sort of build your own program of number of credits, but generally 3 are the courses, most of the courses: ocean and coastal, environmental law, administrative law. All of those core courses are 3 credits. For master's students, we require 2 courses: administrative law and environmental law, as sort of the framework classes that you'll be building from. And then TESS teaches an introductory course that we have found is a really nice way to prepare master's students for studying in a law school setting. And so there's some nice introduction to the legal system, and then sort of environmental law generally. It's a course that in the summer, if you were to start in the fall, is offered right before the fall semester starts. We also offer it in the spring, right as the semester starts. Our international LLM students also take that class. So that's a nice mix of students there. If you are an international student interested in the MSL program, we don't require administrative law. Administrative law varies so widely across the globe that we don't require it. We certainly recommend it if it's of interest to you. And then at least 18 of the 26 credits must be in environmental law courses. Not hard, because almost all the classes are environmental law classes, so that is an easy lift to meet that particular class. Next slide. Okay, what do we look for in our applicants? For the MSL program, we are looking for students who already have their college or university or bachelor's degree. Different terms, of course, are used from an accredited school here in the US or across the globe. Anne mentioned that we have international students, and both in the LLM and master's programs, and we welcome that. Of course, that creates a lot of interesting diversity in the classes. So we're looking for students who already have the basic college degree, since this is a graduate degree. Anne mentioned the intensive reading, and I certainly understand that. That's sort of law school, right? Lots of reading. So we're looking for applicants who have done well in school so far. We want our MSL students to succeed. We are tossing you into law school classes with law school professors, with law school materials. Our MSLs actually tend to do extremely well in that environment, but obviously you're going to be successful if you have good academic record, good experience, good analytical and writing skills, coming in. And then, of course, we want you to have a genuine passion in environmental natural resources or energy law. Now, I would say on this point, we have applicants who are interested in environmental issues generally. They are open to what type of issues they might do in the program and then for their career. That is great. You can explore your interests, what you like, don't like, along the way. Then we also have students who come in with a very keen interest, for example, Anne's interest in energy issues. And you may have a particular area, clean air, climate change, etc. And certainly we can work with you on that pathway as well. So what I'm trying to say is, in your application, you don't have to know that you absolutely want to do forest law as you're applying for the program. We welcome students who are just passionate about environmental issues in whatever stage you are. Just because we know that's going to help you get through the program, because at the core, you're looking for a career in this very dynamic and exciting field.
Thanks, Janice. And I'm happy to talk a little bit about next steps if the seminar has inspired you and you decide that you kind of want to apply or interested in learning more about it. So we are still accepting applications for our fall start date. So applications are due July 15th, and that's also for a scholarship as well. So if you want to be considered for a tuition award, that's a percentage discount. Let us know. We can send you the form that you need to fill out along with your application. I also, if you're thinking about applying for this fall, I would encourage, and receiving federal financial aid, I would encourage you to apply for FAFSA as soon as possible. There have been some significant delays in FAFSA this year, so even if you haven't officially been admitted to the program yet, you can apply for FAFSA and get that process started so that you can receive your financial aid report if that's something that you're looking at after you are admitted. So for the application, what we require is a statement of interest, which Janice talked about. That's where you're going to talk about your interest in environmental law. And again, it doesn't have to be specific. It doesn't have to be super long, you know, 1 page about is perfect. And just talk about why you're interested in this program, why and how you think the MSL might benefit you in a future career or what you plan to do with this degree, and kind of how that ties into your interest in environmental law. We also require a resume, just a typical business resume. What you would use to apply for jobs right now is totally fine. You don't need to revamp it or anything like that to apply for the program, unless there's other areas, volunteer experiences and stuff you want to highlight that highlight your interest in environmental law as well. And then your unofficial bachelor's degree transcripts. So unofficial are totally fine. We won't request the official until you actually start the program. And then again, we use that to evaluate your academic success and things like that. And then 1 to 3 letters of recommendation. These can be professional letters of recommendation, academic letters of recommendation. So we usually like to see if you, depending on when you graduated from your undergrad program or from a different master's program, you know, we like to see an academic letter of recommendation from a professor or a teaching assistant that you had a relationship with that can highlight your success in the classroom. But, you know, we also take ones from volunteer supervisors, work supervisors. We don't have any stipulations around the letters of rec, so it can be from anybody. But I recommend getting, you know, we know your family and friends are going to offer great letters of recommendation. So we always recommend, you know, getting professional volunteer supervisors or professors, teaching assistants to write those. And again, they can email them directly to us or they can email them to you and you can send that to us with their application. We also require a writing sample, as Janice mentioned, and there's a lot of reading, a lot of writing that goes into these courses. So we like to see a writing sample of 5 to 7 pages, something you did in your current work, something you did in undergrad is totally fine. Again, it does not have to be environmental in nature. So, you know, it can be about anything, just something that shows that you can research, something that you have strong writing skills, and we evaluate that for the program too. If you're an international student, we do require a TOEFL or an IELTS score if you did not graduate from an undergrad institution where you were taught in English. So you can see those scores there. And again, we're happy to talk about that if you have any questions about, you know, those scores or satisfying them. And I also wanted to quickly, Maren asked another question about the 18 to 26 credits. So what other courses someone could take. So it's a great question. So you're allowed to take classes outside of the environmental program. That's where the other, you know, the potential other 8 credits would do, which means we've had students who have taken some of our animal law classes, like if they're interested in agricultural or climate change. It is on a space available basis, so you don't always get into those classes. So that's just something to note, but we do try really hard to get you into those classes. And most of the time we're able to get you in for, you know, one semester during the summer. And then outside the online, we also offer some Zoom classes that we've had students take. So in tribal law, in federal Indian law, some students have taken classes in those areas as well because they really tie in with their interest in environmental law. And then we've had some who have done come to campus in person and maybe taken outside of environmental law, you know, like a business class or something like that, or a contracts class that again would tie into the interest that you're interested in, but maybe isn't exclusively within the environmental law program. There's not as many of those offered online, but we do offer some outside of the environmental law program online too. And Janice, if there's anything you wanted to add to that.
No, I think you hit that nail on the head. So it definitely depends on, you know, what other classes might serve your personal and professional interests best. But we do have an Indian law program in the summer with Zoom classes. Tess mentioned the animal law program, which has a full asynchronous program like we do. And we try to accommodate each other's students absolutely when we can to switch around in those different classes. And then other kinds of Zoom classes are offered. So good question there. Yeah. So we are at the end of our information. We wanted to be sure that you could see our contact information there. And we have a wonderful team of admissions folks who would be kind of your first line of contact to answer questions. And then they refer you to Tess and me for details. And so it's a great system that really helps get your questions answered. Um, so we look forward certainly to hearing from any of you who are considering this program and who may have specific questions unique to you and your path and where you've come from that Tess and I are delighted to answer. Pop any other final questions you have in the chat or the Q&A, but I'm going to address just a couple of frequently answered questions just to kind of round out information in this particular webinar. One of the questions we get is the sequencing of our online classes. Are they offered every year, every semester, every other year? And we have on our website the list of courses we offer in the online program. And many of them are offered every year. So either every summer, like administrative law, or every fall, environmental law and others, or every spring. And then there are some that rotate, which is a nice way to sequence out your particular curriculum. And if anyone is interested in knowing the exact sequencing of any of our classes, we can provide that information. But there's always a good list of choices to take each semester. And if you can't take all the classes in a particular semester, they'll come around again, in the next cycle. We also often get questions about starting time. And so I wanted to note that students can start either in the summer. Many of our students like to start in the summer with administrative law, a class that Anne mentioned. We offer that in the summer. We also offer some Zoom lifetime classes in the summer. Or you can start in the fall. Generally for us, that is late August start with the intro class we mentioned starting about 2 weeks before that. Or you can start in our spring semester, which generally is about the second week of January. Any of those three terms works. So you can apply for any of those terms. You can even apply early and decide that you might want to start later, just so you have your plans kind of all squared away. The other questions that we get are, what if there's a semester that I've already taken the classes that are offered, or none of them particularly grab me, or I really want to take a deep dive into a particular issue? We have a couple of options for, what I would call sort of self-designed study. And one of them is we have this great option of allowing our students to write a paper on a topic of their choice in the environmental field. And Tess and I match students with a faculty member who has expertise in that area. And that allows students to write a paper, take a deep dive into a particular topic, maybe advocate for a potential solution if there's an environmental conflict. So that's a nice way to cover, an area of interest that may not be in a class, or it may be, and you want to really kind of take a run at it yourself. Some of our student papers are what I would call publishable. If they're really great and you're really, ambitious about writing a publishable piece, some of our students have done that. We also have a class sort of, short of a big paper like that, It's the Emerging Topics in Environmental Law class. I happen to teach it and took it. And you can write there a short blog. That's 1,500 to 2,000 words on a topic of interest to you. We post those blogs on our website. And they are often picked up by, reporters or people doing research on your topic, and they want to reach out and talk to our students. So there's that opportunity as well. In other words, it's not a lockstep program. We want you to have some flexibility in covering issues, that are of interest to you. So I wanted to kind of hit those questions. I think that is it for us, unless Tess or Anne, any closing remarks that you would have that we should add. Oh, Tess, you're so on it. Tess is posting where the blogs are. Probably you'll be able to see Anne's blogs are up there. They're very good, I have to say. And I'm not just saying that, they are. So it is fun to look at those blogs and see what students have written on. Anne, anything before we close out?
No, I just want to thank everybody for being here. And just I'll let Janice and Tess know this. If any of the students who are here want to ask me any more questions, like just personally, feel free to let Tess know, and she can pass on my information, and I'm
Great.
happy to answer any questions that come up later. I know sometimes it's hard to process information and you're not sure what you want to know until later. So
That's
I'm
awesome.
happy to do that.
Thank you, Anne. Well, thank you again for joining us. And we look forward to hearing from any of you with questions from Tess or to me or to Anne. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful day.